We waited long enough for it, but we got an incredible first Formula One race of the season at the Austrian Grand Prix. To go over everything and the key topics that we want to talk about today, I've got Ed Straw and Scott Mitchell with me, Glenn Freeman. And just before we get going, a quick reminder to like this video and subscribe to our channel if you like what we're doing and want to see more of it. We appreciate all of the support you've given us so far at the race, and we're really looking forward to finally having some racing to talk about. So Scott, let's talk about the racing and what happened on track. And the big topic, of course, is Lewis Hamilton and Alex Albon colliding in the closing stages. This incident has divided opinion. We've had a poll on our YouTube channel. We've had an article where loads of our writers gave their opinion, and that was split. Where do you stand on the clash?
I felt that this was the definition of a racing incident, which is maybe something that's been lost from Formula One's vocabulary in recent years. We sort of moved into this environment where there has to be blame apportioned, and I can see why people blame Lewis because he's the aggressor on the inside. But as far as I'm concerned, in that kind of situation, the driver on the outside, they know they're taking a risk. That is a very difficult corner to pass around the outside. And the car on the inside has to follow the laws of physics. So it's going to run wide. The natural line out of that corner is to run onto the curb as well. So it's not like Alex was completely crowded onto the gravel. There was a bit more room that he could have moved left and taken. So I thought the penalty was harsh, and I think Lewis was only penalised because Alex got spun down the order. I think if they'd bumped wheels and Alex had gone through the gravel and come back on just behind him, I don't actually think there'd be a penalty, because I think we've moved into this world where sort of consequence drives the penalty. And while that is valid to a degree, that is going to blur the lines on how we view incidents like these. I think it was 6 to 1, half a dozen to the other, to use a cliche. So definition of a racing incident for me, and I'm looking forward to being absolutely sledged in the comments as a result.
Yeah, well, you've obviously had a look at the results in our poll, which you can find on this channel. I think as we record this, over 70% blaming Lewis for the incident, so feeling that the penalty was fair or maybe not even harsh enough. Ed, let's talk about the penalty, because obviously that had a big impact on the end of the race. Regarding what Scott said there, can you still understand why Hamilton got the penalty?
Yeah, I can understand the reasoning. While personally, I'd probably lean towards racing incident. The stewards have to look at the incident as it happened. They decreed that Hamilton was predominantly to blame. That, of course, is the rule if a driver is wholly or predominantly to blame. So rather than 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, they thought it was maybe 9 of one, 3 of the other, to use the same maths. So I can understand why, if you look at that, you could say, yes, Lewis could have held it a little bit tighter maybe, although physics perhaps would have made that quite difficult. Albon, for me, has an element of risk. He has a part in it because going around the outside is tricky. But I think if you're a steward, if you're confronted with the rules, the precedent we've seen, I can understand why they gave the penalty they did. The 5-second penalty is the mildest one they can give in terms of actual time penalties. So they perhaps felt their hands were tied. So yeah, I see why they did it. I think we could have called it a racing incident though.
And Ed, this typified really a weekend where Red Bull and Mercedes seemed to be butting heads the whole time. The cars maybe weren't matched equally for pace, but the teams really seemed to be at each other's throats quite a bit on the track and off it.
I can only assume that they were so bored of being conciliatory and working together to save Formula One as they have over the past few months, all the teams, that they just wanted to get back down to that aggro. But of course we had the DAS protest that Red Bull did on the Friday. They felt it was illegal. Mercedes felt it was legal. The stewards agreed with Mercedes, which wasn't a great surprise. And then, of course, we had the Lewis Hamilton yellow flag. Red Bull brought the new evidence, that 360-degree camera that led to Lewis Hamilton being given that penalty. Then we have the clash and the war of words starts to happen a little bit. So I think it shows that Mercedes see Red Bull as a real threat this year, because they're kind of getting into the spirit of the competition and the needle, shall we say. But I think it probably also shows that Mercedes has got this pressure because of the reliability. But then again, of course, Red Bull had unreliability as well. So it's not as if that's a big strength that Red Bull has over Mercedes. One of those teams got both cars to the flag, the other one didn't. But I think it does show that there's that underlying aggravation and competitive spirit just waiting to get out. Perhaps it was inevitable after such a lengthy delay that this would happen. It just seemed to be Mercedes and Red Bull all the time involved.
Yeah, and I think Toto Wolff in the end saying that the gloves are off, which personally I believe bodes very well for the season. We want to see a rivalry, we want to see more than one team fighting for the World Championship. But talking of the World Championship, Scott, did Red Bull miss a massive opportunity here? Because as Ed mentioned there, Mercedes were vulnerable this weekend, but it was still Valtteri Bottas who won the Grand Prix.
Yeah, ultimately that developing feud between Red Bull and Mercedes, it counts for nothing off track if on track Mercedes is still getting the job done. And this is, it's obviously not exactly why they've won the last 6 drivers and constructors world championships, but just feels like Mercedes, even in their most adverse moments, are still able to pull something out the bag. So Red Bull had a big chance here. I mean, if Verstappen had been able to run more than whatever it was, like a fifth of the race, if that, he would have obviously been in contention at the end. And you have to think that 2 limping Mercedes or Mercedes in conservation mode are going to be very vulnerable to a Verstappen on a charge, especially given the way the race panned out. And as it happens, even Alex Albon, who is clearly proving himself to be an opportunistic and good driver, he's not quite on Max's level. He was in victory contention at the end. So you've got a set of circumstances that conspired whereby both cars should have been in position to win. One car was in position to win, and yet Red Bull have come out of it with a double DNF. And Honda is now investigating what happened quite furiously. They've initially put it down to electrical issues, but I'm sure that will have a more firmer analysis in the days between the 2 races at the Red Bull Ring, and they'll do whatever they can to have countermeasures in place for race 2, the Styrian Grand Prix, because same circuit, different name. But it's a blow for Red Bull, because Hamilton will come away from Austria thinking, 4th place, 13 points behind Bottas. That's a really bad start to my season, considering at the moment we've only got 8 races confirmed and who knows how many. But for Red Bull, no points on the board at all. It's a really bad start for Verstappen's championship campaign on the driver's side, and Red Bull are staring down the barrel of a big points deficit as well.
Well, we don't have long to wait to find out how round 2 is going to play out. Same circuit. Let's see if the teams have learned anything from this weekend, and let's see if Mercedes and Red Bull can get through the race without any reliability dramas. Part of me hopes they can't, because it was a very exciting Sunday afternoon with everyone looking so vulnerable. We'll be back very soon to discuss other topics from the Austrian Grand Prix and lead you into the Styrian Grand Prix. And remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel if you'd like to catch up with those and show the support for what we've been doing. But for now, we'll see you again very soon.